Hey guys, it's GirlGotGame. Welcome back to London Detective Mysteria, where we are now going to do Akachi's epilogue, an English lady in an Eastern land. Let's see if this boy can keep up his #1 spot that he's got in my heart, or if he'll fall back down underneath Holmes. But I'm really excited to go to Japan in this epilogue. So let's see what happens. I want new outfits, I want all kinds of stuff. I'm so excited. Let's see what your epilogue's all about, Ken-chan. Roused from a sound slumber by a gentle sway and clatter, I heard someone calling my name as though from a distance, then growing nearer. Wake up, Emily. Slowly, my eyelids fluttered open. Oh, dang, you starting with a picture, like, right away?
Morning, Emily! Did you sleep well?
Yes, it was quite comfortable. Oh, look at you guys! Aw, she's so sleepy.
Glad to hear it. I'll bet Akachi was pleased as well, given his recent turn as your dependable pillow.
Aw, he let her sleep on him. Man, that must have been so difficult for him. Like, is that girl touching me? What are you saying, Kobayashi? It was never my intent to. Kobayashi simply leaned back in his seat opposite mine with a wide grin on his face. It was then that the embarrassing truth began to dawn on me. No. All the way he smiles at her, my heart. Oh. Oh dear! I'm so sorry, Akachi. I had no idea I had fallen asleep propped against you. I can't believe myself. The fault is mine. I should have informed you of it as I saw you grow drowsy, but I just kept putting it off.
Well, her sleeping face was quite comely. She was the picture of innocence as she began to nod off, but once you drew her closer still to you...
Oh, you took advantage. Kobayashi.
Oh, goodness! Trains sure make for quick travel. We must be near Shinbashi by now.
Yeah, you better run. Kobayashi gazed out the window with a surprisingly sudden interest. Akachi, meanwhile, turned in my direction, our gazes meeting. His face was still a little red, but in his eyes were the same kindness I had long known, and before I knew it, my own cheeks flushed a scarlet hue as well. We boarded this train almost as soon as we disembarked at the port of Yokohama, so I'm not surprised you'd be tired. You were like a child on her birthday when we first landed. Oh, I suppose I can't deny it. The air in Japan was so fresh and clear, completely different from the haze and fog of London. So captivated was I by the newness of it all that I had almost fallen over several times already, not looking where I was going. Typical Emily. I need to pull myself together, or the people of Japan will all have a good laugh at my expense. I ought to behave more like an English lady. Well, that's a very respectable standard to measure yourself against. He gently squeezed my hand as if to reassure me that things would be fine. You guys are so domestic. What did I miss? But while I'm more aware than most that you have a propensity to bite off more than you can chew, if anything should happen, and even if nothing does, know that you can always call on me. Don't push yourself too hard, all right? Of course. Thank you, Akachi. I don't think I've ever seen streets this lively before. And look at that lady walking so elegantly there. She's so slender and with such a beautiful dress, too. Oh, is that a small carriage? Wait, why is it being pulled by a man? They're called jinriksha. In function, they're not unlike the cabs in London.
You'll see the sort of carriages you're used to on the narrower thoroughfares of the city, but in downtown areas like this, the smaller sort are far more common.
Both the people surrounding me and the language they spoke were far different than anything with which I was familiar, and it served to make clear anew how far I had ventured from home. Presumably because Western women were not a common sight, I attracted no shortage of stares and quizzical glances from passers-by. It's harder than I thought to relax here. I wonder if this is how Akachi and Kobayashi felt when they first arrived in London. As I recall, they seemed quite confident and undaunted when I first encountered them. Perhaps I ought to learn from their example.
The government bureau we're to report to is this way. We should head there to greet them and present our preliminary report.
We'll need to let them know we've returned safely, and that Emily has joined us from London too.
I need to properly greet the people of your country, too. It's just that now I've begun to feel a little nervous about it.
You'll be fine. You can speak some basic Japanese now, after all.
Wait, how much? How long were we at how long has it been? Much of the journey from Bombay to Yokohama had been spent learning the fundamentals of Japanese vocabulary and grammar from Akachi and Kobayashi. While I couldn't by any means claim fluency, I at least knew enough to get by in day-to-day scenarios. Dang, girl, you smart!
You're also a detective recognized by Her Majesty the Queen of England. I don't think you have anything to worry about.
I think I should start worrying, now that you've said that. As we continued on, the teeming bustle of the city gave way to a district decidedly more western. The buildings here seem much more like those in London. After what we just saw, it feels a bit strange.
Supposedly, a bunch of architects from English were invited over to design them and supervise their construction. Japan's been eager to incorporate all sorts of English trends lately, in everything from politics to machinery to military structure.
English technology is a step above even that of the world's other developed nations. That our current government is dominated by men from the domains of Satsuma and Choshu that belong to the Tao Bakuha is likely another reason for its newfound prevalence.
The Satsuma and Choshu. Oh my goodness. These names are coming back. Oh, I'm so glad I played Hakuoki right before this, because it wasn't that many years ago before where we are current time. Oh, man. Hakuoki nostalgia pains. What is a Tobakuha exactly?
Oh, sorry, I forgot myself. Allow me to explain.
Can you at least try keeping it short and sweet, Akachi? If you launch into one of your long-winded lectures, it'll be no time at all before we grow bored enough to leave and browse the stalls along the street.
You're just looking for an excuse to window shop.
Dang. I mean, Kobayashi, you could probably go do this because you already know. After silencing Kobayashi's whinging, Akachi began to explain the particulars of Japan's government to me. Ah, whinging.
Until a few decades ago, the ruling government of Japan was the Tokugawa shogunate, also referred to as the Bakufu, in which power was held by a small number of dominant warrior families. It was they who had forbade opening relations with foreign countries.
Oh, man. Sorry, I'll calm down. I'm just so excited.
The Tobakuha refers to the two feudal domains, those being the aforementioned Satsuma and Choshu, who most strongly opposed the Bakufu's ways and attempted to overthrow it, leading to civil war. But the Tao Bakuha prevailed in the end, and in its victory restored the emperor to power, establishing a new government. Since then, Japan has pursued rapid modernization, and has sent large numbers of students abroad to study in Western countries. Among the Western powers, English in particular is thought to have provided military aid to the Tao Bakuha, particularly the Satsuma domain.
I see. In light of that, it makes sense as to why our countries remain on good terms even after the war. It feels like an honor to think that our technology and strength is aiding even those on the other side of the world. Talk about... what's the word? I had the word in for a second, but like... hearts being tugged into different directions. It's like... yeah, it was good, but my boys died. My boys died. In that war.
To be sure, Japan would not have been able to develop as it has these last few decades without the technological advancements of English and other Western nations. However, that rapid modernization led to its own issues.
Akachi abruptly stopped. In his eyes I saw a weight that had not been there a minute before.
No country is without its share of citizens who think ill of outsiders, and Japan is certainly no exception. There are, in this country, those who fear that Western ideals may taint or even pose a threat to the Japanese way of life, holding that our long-cherished traditions are in danger of being lost.
They're also the ones most likely to do something crazy, which is how we ended up being summoned back to Japan.
If we should happen to encounter any such people while we're here, they may pose a threat to you. Do not stray from my side.
All right, I shall exercise caution and remain near you. He held his hand out to me and I clasped it firmly. The streets of London knew no shortage of dangers either, but just as back home, if I were to simply wall myself up away from the world, I would be unable to learn anything about it. Let's hope there's no fog in Japan.
Still, look at you, holding a lady's hand and showing her around. I see all the time we spent in English has not failed to convert you into a model English gentleman.
Kobayashi, the next time you try to poke fun at me, I promise you we will leave you at the side of the road.
Oh, come on now! I was only paying you a compliment!
So I'm sure that must be a strange sight to see in Japan at this point in time. Suddenly we heard the sound of a bell ringing out, and instinctively I turned to ascertain the direction from which the sound had come. Oh my, she's so beautiful. Hello. It's Akachi's ideal woman. Upon turning, I caught sight of a single young girl as she strolled gracefully down the avenue. Her jet black hair swayed gently in the breeze, painting her as the very picture of elegance. This young woman was the very sort of which Akachi and Kobayashi had spoken when they first described to me the Yamato Nadeshiko ideal. Even I could not help but be captivated by her beauty. She's like a doll. What an exquisite complexion. As though noticing my attention focused on her, she looked our way, and the deep chestnut of her eyes was as enchanting as her straight hair. Oh, and you know these two. Interesting.
Kenichirou? Seiji? What are the two of you doing in the company of such a stylish lady?
What? I was taken completely aback. The words issuing from her mouth sounded almost Japanese, but I could understand them. Dang. And you're on a first-name basis with these two boys.
Oh, I'd recognize that awful accent anywhere. Long time no see, Chi.
I never expected to happen upon you two on the way back from my errands. And just whose accent are you calling awful? I'd keep my mouth shut if I were you, Seiji.
She's an acquaintance of ours, Emily. I apologize if she surprised you. She works as a housemaid at a mansion in the district where we used to live. And as you've heard for yourself, she still has quite the thick Tohoku accent.
She's quite the looker, as long as she doesn't open her mouth. What a tragic waste of a pretty face.
I hardly think a noisy midget like you has any place heaping slights upon me.
What was that now?
Settle down, you two. Honestly.
Akachi frowned, but something in his tone suggested to me that he was no stranger to exchanges just like this one. Good day to you. I'm sorry for not introducing myself sooner. My name is Emily Whiteley of London. Your name was Chi-san, correct? It's my pleasure to make your acquaintance. Stealing my nerves as best I could, I clutched at the hems of my skirt and curtsied to her.
Whoa, she's so genteel. It's the first time anyone has ever greeted me with a good day to you, too. There's no need to call me Chi-san, though. Just plain Chi is fine. Yoroshiku-ne, Emily.
Huh? Yoroshiku-ne?
Don't worry, Emily. What she's trying to say is that she's pleased to meet you as well. Sorry she's being difficult about it.
England, too, is rife with regional accents depending on where you go. A difference in wording here and there is nothing unusual. As Chi approached me, eyes seeming to sparkle, I couldn't help but think of Hudson, and the strange yet fitting comparison made me feel at once closer to my new acquaintance. Yeah, actually.
Huh. Still, I never expected you to return with a pretty doll of a wife like her. You sure must have had quite a time in Engel's, Kenichirou.
Wife?
Now see here, she isn't...
Though he began with a bluster, he fell silent mid-sentence, and I timidly looked up, waiting for him to continue. But he simply stood there, face red as a tomato, and seeing him, I couldn't help but blush as well.
A pretty lady like her would turn heads in a pure white kimono, no doubt. Though, I'd like to see her in one of those Engel's dresses, too. You know, the poofy white ones.
You're referring to a wedding dress, right? I'll bet Emily would look great whether she selected a Western dress or a wedding kimono. You think so too, right, Akachi?
Kobayashi, you're not helping.
I concur, naturally.
Akachi at first hesitated, but after a moment, he seemed to dispense with formality entirely, and declare his opinion as though it were the most matter-of-fact statement in the world.
Whether dress or kimono, I think you would fit either perfectly.
Thank you. Though I've never tried wearing a kimono before. But if I ever have that opportunity, I want you to be the very first to see it. Is that all right?
Of course. And I shall be right there at your side, making sure you don't trip.
What? Do I really seem like the sort who would be prone to stumbling?
Without a doubt. In fact, I'm almost certain yours would be a spectacular fall.
Oh, come on! You could at least pretend to have a little faith. I hope we get to see Emily in a kimono. They just accepted their, like, yeah, sure, okay, we're married, or we will be getting married, like, very quickly. Oh, I like Chi. She's so cute. Continuing on, we eventually arrived at the government office, a brick building that emblematized Japan's adoption of Western styles. Bleh. At first, the civil servants who greeted us seemed surprised to see me. However, I discovered that royal influence did indeed extend overseas.
Ah, that's the ring the Queen of England bestows upon her most trusted detectives. And, moreover, you're the daughter of an earl. Allow us to welcome you to Japan, Miss Whiteley. Truly, it's an honor to have you visit our nation.
Thank you very much.
As an earl's daughter, I'm sure you must be quite the exceptional dancer. You ought to attend the dinner party tomorrow. Many Japanese nobles will be in attendance.
What? That's rather sudden, isn't it? I doubt they would think well of me simply showing up.
On the contrary. Please, leave every detail of your stay to us. We wouldn't want any difficulties to befall such an esteemed guest. Have you perchance seen a traditional Japanese tea room yet? If not, why not take part in a tea ceremony while you're here? As for the two of you, you're the exchange students here to report your return home, correct? Ah, yes. Kenichirou, Akachi, and Seiji Kobayashi. You're to report to police headquarters immediately and lend your assistance to the ongoing investigation. What? So soon?
Emily is our friend. We cannot simply leave her alone.
You needn't worry about Miss Whiteley. We'll be sure to extend her every comfort to help her feel welcome. Now, if you just come this way, Miss Whiteley.
I feel bad about this. This is not good, is it?
I'm afraid this area is off limits to exchange students, however, so you cannot come with her.
No, wait!
Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Though I'm disappointed I won't be able to help you relate what happened on our voyage here. I think this is a good opportunity to meet many Japanese people. I'll deal with things here, so just focus on your investigation, all right?
Very well. We'll come to see you again soon.
And besides, we still need to go out for onigiri and manaka together.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I smiled, nodding to them, and could see their brows unfurrow ever so slightly, as though one worry at least had been lifted from their shoulders. Please don't be unfriendly. After I had separated from them, my time in Japan grew rather more hectic than I had anticipated, to say the least. As Akachi and Kobayashi busied themselves with their investigative duties, I received a never-ending stream of invitations to parties held by prominent government officials. Well, I've got my hat, but I want to see you in a kimono or a yukata or something. Perhaps being unused to the sight of foreigners like myself, people tended to approach me with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. I felt fortunate that Pendleton had sent along in my luggage a dress suitable for such formal occasions. I hope that, in talking to others, I can help them understand England to a greater degree. Perhaps I can even get those who still hope for the expulsion of all foreigners to reconsider their position. Good day to you, and thank you so much for inviting me to such a wonderful party. Sometimes I spoke in as much Japanese as I could manage, and at other times in English. I found that the more I spoke to people, the more others began coming to talk with me.
I'm quite surprised at just how sociable English ladies are.
As am I. I hear England is ruled today by a queen rather than a king. Perhaps we have finally arrived at an era in which women can go out into the world and contribute to society too. I couldn't be certain whether they understood what I was trying to accomplish, or whether this was simply their way of making me feel welcome, but the high-ranking government officials continued to invite me to one important event after another. All that I saw, all that I heard, all that I touched, everything seemed to my senses fresh and exciting, each day filled with surprise and discovery. But even so, I just wish Akachi were here to share it with. I had been given boarding at a very modern and particularly impressive hotel on which construction had been completed only a few years prior. There appeared to be a great number of other foreign diplomats and officials staying there, and the security guards posted in the hallways at all times lent credibility to the idea. On a number of occasions, I attempted to leave my room to visit Akachi and Kobayashi, but each time I was stopped by the guards.
For your safety, I'm afraid we cannot allow you to venture out alone. Please, return to your room.
Every time the result was the same. They would tell me it was for my safety, and I would trudge back to my room. It's been days since I last saw them. I hope they're doing all right. But mumbling to myself and brooding in between parties did little to lighten my spirits. I felt as though the pain of longing and isolation prickled within my chest. Everyone with whom I spoke to did their utmost to make me feel like a welcome guest in Japan, and for that I was grateful. But I realized that if I wished to my friends, I would have to make that effort alone. Wish to see my friends?
Miss Whiteley, if you could spare a moment to discuss your schedule tomorrow...
Excuse me, but I have a favor I'd like to ask of you. 2 friends of mine, Kenichirou Akachi and Seiji Kobayashi, are currently aiding the police with an investigation. Could you tell me anything about how the 2 of them are doing? Any information will do, no matter how small. Please?
Oh, you mean those 2 former exchange students? I'll be sure to ask the man leading the investigation later. But in the meantime, regarding tomorrow's schedule...
No matter how often I inquired, I could never wheedle from anyone a straightforward answer. At this rate, I fear I shall never be able to see them again, no matter how long I wait. Akachi himself promised to come see me, too. They must be keeping him away as well. What is happening? By now, I was certain something had come up that stopped him from fulfilling his promise. But even knowing that did little to ease the loneliness of being alone in a nation not one's own. If he cannot come to me, I ought to go to him. My room was located on the hotel's uppermost floor, the distance from my window to the ground too great to descend even by makeshift rope. Even if I were to try, there was every chance a guard would notice me in the attempt. There were always guards stationed next to the staircase that led to the lower floors, but no guard was infallible, and I began plotting how I might distract them just long enough to pass by, she said to herself out loud. It was then that I took notice of a large willow tree just outside the window, gently swaying in the breeze.
Look! There's something caught in the branches of that tree! What's that white cloth? Is it another of those anti-foreigner banners? We need to get it down, on the double!
Perfect. They've taken the bait. I waited until I was sure the guards had left the area before slowly cracking open the door of my room.
accept the silent apology, hotel maids, for using your perfectly good sheets in my ploy, but I needed this chance.
Suppressing my urge to throw caution to the wind and dash down the hallway, I instead crept as quickly as I was able. I descended to the first floor, then the ground floor. Now all I needed was to hide away somewhere and wait for a chance to sneak outside. Then I'd...
Excuse me, what might you be doing here?
Oh boy. I turned toward the voice and saw a man in uniform. A policeman, by all appearances, with a face. Curse you. His eyes scanned me with a hawk-like gaze.
No, perhaps that wasn't the right question. Instead, let me ask whether you were the one responsible for the commotion moments ago.
It felt less like a question and more like a cross-examination. It was clear that I wouldn't be able to wheedle my way out of this.
I'm sorry for causing trouble.
So, where are you intending to go?
I wish to visit 2 friends of mine.
Are those friends foreigners like yourself?
No, they're Japanese. But that's all I'll say on the matter.
He stared silently for a few moments, processing the situation before he spoke again.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I can't let you leave the grounds. This country is far from safe, especially for foreigners. The age of the warrior may have come to a close, but deep-seated resentment toward the new government lingers even still. Some of that is due to its policy of rapid modernization, for which you serve as a perfect symbol. Every aspect of your being sets you apart from us. Your eyes, your hair, the color of your skin, your class. Even your way of thinking is foreign.
But are we not all humans just the same? We can look one another in the eye, shake hands, and discuss matters. Coming to understand each other isn't...
Idealism, pure and simple. As I recall, no one invited you to Japan in the first place, did they?
I found myself lost for a meaningful response. Perhaps my desire to come here really was little more than selfish whim.
What has happened here is that you've gotten lost in this rather large building and had some difficulty finding your way back to your room, which is where I'll escort you now.
Unable to refuse, I had no choice but to accompany him back to my room.
You're stubborn, I'll give you that. Miss Whiteley is an esteemed guest of the government and a young lady of high social standing. Do you really think an ordinary fellow like you could just meet with her whenever the fancy strikes you? Just give up already.
I have no intention of doing so. Please, allow me to pass. I want to see her.
Ever since he had been separated from Emily, Akachi had come to the hotel where she was being housed to inquire after her. No matter how occupied his investigation kept him, he hadn't missed a single day. I knew my boy. But just as often as he had come, he had been turned away at the entrance.
I wonder if this is due to those anti-foreigner groups. I recall hearing that the authorities had increased the alert level for the entire Tokyo metropolitan area. I told her I would come visit her, and yet I now find myself powerless to even approach her.
I see you carry a katana at your side. I take it that the fact that you have received permission to do so means you're in the employ of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police.
And if I am, what difference is it to you?
Merely the fact that one responsible for ensuring law and order ought not be found doting upon some young Western girl. The world she and you occupy are far too different. It is time you open your eyes to that truth.
I would rather be thought of as a fool than to break the promise I made to her. And so I again beseech you, could you please let me in?
You don't know when to turn and walk away, do you? Maybe you're the type who only responds to a more physical sort of persuasion. Give it up. If you're planning to tangle, you won't catch him on the back foot. I don't want to be the one forced to submit a report on a guard charged with providing security for VIPs, instigating a fight with a child and losing. Inspector! Hello, sir!
As the inspector emerged from the hotel, the guards immediately stood at attention. As he strode past Akachi, however, the young man stopped him with a question.
Why did you say that? About me not being caught on the back foot? I didn't have my hand on my sword, and my posture had not the least bit of offensive readiness in it.
Neither of those facts invalidate my assessment. Never forget this, young man. No matter how we strive, we can never become that which we emulate. We're simply pretenders trying to graft to our own branches the way of the West.
He then continued on his way, giving Akachi not so much as a backward glance.
Akachi! I knew I'd find you here!
As the inspector disappeared, Kobayashi arrived, huffing with a shortness of breath as if to take his place.
Nothing today either, huh? They really are a hard-headed lot, aren't they? Come to think of it, I just passed a grim-looking man on my way in. Nothing happened, did it?
No, I'm fine.
I'm glad to hear it. He had a katana too, so for a minute I was scared you'd gotten yourself into a fight. Oh. Though, now that I think about it, his sword was slung at his right-hand side. Aren't you supposed to wear them on the left?
There's a small subset of left-handed swordsmen who wear their swords on their right. But that aside, why were you in such a hurry?
Oh, right. After we parted ways, I was given a letter to give to you. It's from the Ministry of Education, the ones who granted us permission to study abroad. It appears there's to be a party in Akasaka in several days, one that we exchange students are encouraged to attend, and this is our invitation to it. From the sound of it, many diplomats and foreigners will be in attendance, too. It stands to reason that Emily might well be in attendance, don't you think?
That does sound quite possible. But take a look at what it says here at the bottom of the invitation.
Akachi thrust the invitation back into Kobayashi's hands, frowning.
Let's see. Exchange students may only attend in lady-gentleman pairs. Single partygoers will not be permitted entry. What? They can't be serious! This will prove quite the obstacle. You only have eyes for Emily. There's no way you'd seek out another woman to be your partner.
Indeed. Be that as it may, however, I don't intend to pass up an opportunity to finally see her again.
I'm sure Chi will stand in. Akachi rubbed his chin deep in thought. Kobayashi gathered from his demeanor that he was determined to succeed in this endeavor.
Kobayashi, I have a favor to ask of you.
Sure. Just let me know what you have in mind. I'd do just about anything to help you and Emily.
Wear this kimono.